5 days before we actually go live, followed by an interactive deeper dive workshop with moderator and presenter Pam Sherman. On April 22nd, we host a hybrid Athena Award celebration at Woodcliff, where we will honor and recognize our 2021 Athena Award finalists in person while we broadcast their achievements live to their colleagues, friends, and family watching online. And finally, on April 28th, we bring you leadership strategies for building a positive workplace culture despite working from home. Now, I know I listed a lot of events for March and April, but you can find all of this and all the information if you visit greaterrochesterchamber.com. Now, please allow me to introduce Jennifer Erinson Jovesky, our presenter and moderator, who will go over the program flow this morning, as well as introduce these wonderful panel of women leaders. Jennifer is a series.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to introduce you.
Sure.
Is a senior associate in Boylan Code's commercial lending and real estate group, who concentrates her practice on lending, commercial and residential real estate sales and acquisitions, and municipal development. She also chairs the firm's school law practice group and represents school districts and charter schools in various areas of education law, labor, and employment, special education law, and real property issues. Jennifer is also the host of Boylan Code's Women's Roundtable, which is a monthly network of women professionals, entrepreneurs, and women business owners who come together to discuss legal issues impacting their sector, network, and champion one another. Please welcome Jennifer.
Thank you very much, Susan. Great, thank you so much. And welcome everybody. I'm actually going to be trying to admit people as we go through this PowerPoint. So here we are. All right. So as Susan said, welcome to the first monthly She Talks Law Women's Legal Roundtable. The Women's Legal Roundtable is a group of women business owners, women entrepreneurs, and women investors. We meet once a month to talk about different legal issues impacting the sector. I am your host, Jennifer Erinson Jovesky. And I am a mother of two, a mom, and a senior associate here at Boylan Code. And for this She Talks Law session, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing a work-life series. So this today is part one of our work-life series. And then on April 29th, we're going to have part two of our work-life series. Just a little bit more background about myself. I'm quite active in the women's community. I'm on the board of directors of the Greater Rochester Association of Women Attorneys. I'm also on the board of trustees for the Young Women's College Prep Charter School. I'm active in RWN. I'm in the Women's Council. I'm in a number of different groups. And the reason that I put together She Talks Law was in looking back at all of my experience and in looking where I am today, I noticed that one thing that is quite consistent throughout has been the women mentors and the women leaders that have gotten me to where I am today. And so that was where She Talks Law was born, is really a group to give back to the women leaders that I've met along the way, so we can all come together, talk a little bit about some law, do some free legal education, get real with one another about what works, what doesn't in the sector, and share ideas and just be a support network for each other more than anything else. Alrighty, so here we go. Let's talk about some of the things. Here is a roadmap of what we're going to be talking about today. I already did my introduction. First, what we're going to do is talk about the numbers. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the imbalance in 2020. Sorry, people are in the waiting room. Here we go. So we'll talk about the numbers first. I'll be showing you a brief video. Then what I'll do is I will go over the law, and I'm going to give a brief overview of the law. We'll talk about best practices as far as employers' best practices, and I will also tell you about the new COVID-19 vaccination laws that went into effect earlier this month. And then we will get to the bread and butter of why we're actually here today, which is a chat with our panelists about what works and what doesn't when it comes to work-life balance, especially for women in a post-pandemic world. Okay. And when we get to the panelist sector, and I'll mention this again, you're free to submit your questions in the chat box, and it can be directed to a specific panelist or all the panelists. Just specify when you put that in the chat box. Great. And please bear with me. Technology is not my forte. All right, here we go. All right, so let's talk about the numbers. Let's go over some of the quantitative data that has been gathered over the past year to reveal the gender divide that I'm talking about. And specifically what I want to do is identify the gap that exists as a result of COVID. So for those of you that don't know, I am a very sarcastic person at times, and I enjoy humor. And I think especially everything over the past year, we all could use a little humor in our life. So I'm going to enlist the help of my friend Samantha B with Full Frontal from TBS, and we're going to be watching, it's a 4-minute clip. All right, let's see if we can do this. And she's going to present some of the numbers that I was referring to. Are you good? Can you hear? No? Hold on. Hey, Susan, can you hear?
No, you might have to put your computer volume up.
What's that?
The volume in your computer. See if you can.
Okay. Okay. Can you hear it now?
No.
No?
I think
That's
someone
all
had
right.
once told me that you could take it out of full screen view to make it work, maybe.
Take it out of full screen view. I'm not quite sure how to do that. Hey, Susan, I'm going to enlist your help. I'm going to make you a co-host.
Okay. Can you make Cassidy a co-host?
Absolutely. Sorry about this, everybody.
Also, if we can't get it to work, we can just share the link in the chat and just give everyone a minute to view the video.
Yeah, that works too. I'm trying to find you. Okay. Cassidy, I just made you a co-host if you could assist me.
The video is still on your screen, so I don't have access to click it.
All right, I'm going to put in the chat box so we don't waste any more time. I'll put in the chat box a link to the video. Aha, I think I may have figured it out actually, everybody. Sorry, sorry about this. Now does it work? Is it working now?
Jen, on the bottom of the screen, you see the speaker, click that. And make sure it's all the way up.
Yeah, it was. Here, I'm just gonna put the link in the chat box. And if everybody could just take, I'm gonna give you 4 minutes to watch this video. Then we're gonna do it that way. There's the link.
Dogs have had so much FaceTime, they're now asking for a break to see other people. While we're still adjusting to this new world, one thing we've certainly learned is the answer to the media's favorite asinine question.
Up next, can women have it all?
Can women have it all? Career or family? It's a struggle for a lot of women. Can women have it all?
Can women have it all? Can women really have it all? Look around. We've got 3 working women right here, so I got a feeling it's going to get a little feisty.
Can women have it all? Was Sarah Jessica Parker not clear enough? No matter how hard women try to have it all, Seth Meyers will always be there ready to take them out. Take a closer look at that, Meyers. Asking if women can have it all was already a stupid question, but now it's even more absurd. Last month, the Biden administration called the number of women leaving the workforce a national emergency. But perhaps the biggest tragedy of all is what other people are calling this trend.
Economists are calling this troubling trend a she-cession, a recession that's disproportionately affecting women.
Some are calling it a she-cession.
You coined the term she-cession. What does the she-covery look like?
A she-covery basically looks just like a regular recovery, but with a couple of fun bags. It's especially upsetting considering that in December 2019, women actually outnumbered men in the US workforce. Unfortunately, just like my friendship with Justin Timberlake, some things have to end.
COVID has decimated a lot of careers for women.
A recent study says one in
Okay, did everybody have a chance to watch it? I'm seeing head shaking. Some yes, some no. Okay, we got a thumbs up. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and continue then. I'm going to share my screen. The gist of the video, for those of you that may not have finished, is we were talking about the numbers and talking about some of the data that has been presented in the media and for everybody else. Some of the data that has been presented by the US Bureau of Labor Statistics and other news sources as well about the gender divide. And here are here's a breakdown on the screen right now of some of the most important numbers from that video that I thought were the most important, at least. So according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, there were 2.2 million fewer women in the labor force in October of 2020 than in October of 2019. September of 2020, women accounted for approximately 80% of the 1.1 million workers who dropped out of the workforce. And that's 4 times more than men. And then in another news source, CNBC reported in November of 2020 that in October of 2020, nearly, again, 2.2 million women left that workforce. And in November of 2020, the number of women working or looking for work was the lowest it had been since 1988. And that was from the Washington Post. So those were just some of the most important numbers that were presented in that video. All right. So why are we talking about women? And one thing that I want to make clear is this discussion is not about men versus women. It's not to get up on a soapbox and say that women have it worse than men. However, it is for the purpose of pointing out the ever prevalent divide that exists and having a discussion about the divide and ways to encourage inclusivity in our businesses and our lives. So according to a 2020 study conducted by Yale University, despite our cultural shifts over the past generation, women still serve as primary caregivers for children and household duties in a majority of households. And again, this is not all, if you go to that study, you can read a little bit more about exactly how they measured this. But the study also showed that statistically, there are more women who work in inflexible jobs, and inflexible in that Yale study is defined as jobs where they don't have the flexibility to work remotely. So restaurants, salons, spas, retail stores, service industry, those are just some of the inflexible jobs which were unfortunately subject to closure early on in 2020. And therefore, women were more likely to be impacted negatively by the pandemic as a result. Okay, and that is the source. I can certainly put that information. You can email me at the end and I'm happy to provide that Yale University study to you. Okay. So briefly, I just want to talk about the law. There are a number of laws that came about as a result of COVID-19. We have our New York laws, specifically New York COVID-19 sick leave laws, New York paid leave law, New York disability benefits law. Most recently, and what I want to focus on right now, is the New York COVID-19 vaccination law. This was, and the reason I'm focusing on it is it was signed on March 12th of 2021, and it grants public and private employees time off to receive the COVID-19 vaccination. They get up to 4 hours of paid leave per injection. It is effective immediately and it expires on December 31st, 2022, unless it's extended further. Employers are prohibited from taking any adverse employment action against an employee or exercising their right to paid COVID-19 vaccination leave. And this specific benefit is in addition to any other COVID-19 benefits, not supplementary to. So you can still take your New York paid sick leave and all of that. So what I just want to go over quickly is some employer best practices. And when I'm talking about best practices, I'm talking about it from the lens of an inclusive environment. Inclusive not only meaning family friendly, but inclusive also to ensure that women return to the workforce and or remain in the workforce. That's the specific lens I'm talking about right now. I'm not talking about anything else as far as race goes, religion, any of that. I'm just talking about gender at this point. So for employers' best practices, it's always my recommendation to my clients to have my employers revisit their policies and procedures and ensure they're family-friendly and inclusive. Remember, what pre-pandemic looked like is very different from post-pandemic as far as family-friendly goes. All right, next is redefining flexibility in the workplace. If possible, allowing people the flexibility to work from home, modified work hours, allowing input from working parents or parents who may, or employees who may be caring for loved ones that are impacted by COVID-19 or acting as caregivers, input about timing of regularly scheduled Zoom meetings. Also, get creative with your benefits. Childcare, vacation, why not? Why not redefine what some of your benefits are to make that more attractive towards your employees? Reconnecting with your workplace community. And this is a big one, making sure that the morale in your environment is still high, despite everybody, some being remote, some being in the office. It just depends, but regardless, reconnect with your workplace community, modify your workplace policies and your mission to ensure diversity and inclusive environment. Communicate with your employees, conduct check-ins to gauge their progress. Social media is a great way to engage with your employees and keep that morale high. Videos, photographs, any challenges that you can do with your employees, engage with your employees and challenge them to use social media as an effective tool to connect with others. And most importantly, there are two really. Consistency, ensuring that your policies are consistent with the ever-changing laws and administrative guidance. And this goes without saying, especially I know a lot of the other attorneys on the call. This is something that we have preached to our clients numerous times over the past year. It is very challenging to stay up to date with CDC guidelines, EEOC, all of the New York State guidelines that are coming out, the legislation that is passed on a weekly basis, almost it seems. It really requires you to engage the help of a professional in order to ensure that your policies and procedures are consistent with these ever-changing laws. For instance, this new COVID-19 vaccination law that I just presented to you does not address whether an employer may request documentation of the vaccination under the new COVID-19 vaccination laws. It doesn't address whether employers may limit the hours employees schedule vaccinations. And it's silent about whether employees are entitled to paid leave for any booster shots, which may be recommended in the future by the FDA. So in order to avoid any civil penalties and fines, I highly recommend that you consult with your attorney. And that's certainly something that we can help with at Boiling Code, but highly recommend to consult with your attorney to see what they recommend as far as some of those items that are silent in the law and to ensure that your policies are consistent. One last slide that I'd like to present before we get to our panel. And this is a slide that talks about, just really quick, since the beginning of COVID, there have been a number of studies from universities all across the country on gender disparities amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. So this table, it really shows what the discomforts are with sharing work-life challenges. It shows women in the orange dot and men in the gray dot. And so when it comes to discomfort sharing work-life challenges, women are 1.5 times more likely to experience discomfort. And this is right from the World Economic Forum. I have the source at the very top of the page. And then when it comes to worrying about performance, of being judged due to caregiving, women are 2.1 times more likely, that's 24% more likely than men to experience worry about their performance and being judged due to caregiving. So if, for instance, you have somebody at home and you have to choose between staying at home to homeschool versus performing in the workplace, that's what I'm talking about there. And women over the past year have reported to the World Economic Forum that they are 2.6 times more likely to experience discomfort sharing their status, even as a parent. And again, this whole thing is focused on women in general. I'm not just focusing on parents, But I bet you more likely than not that there are women that are experiencing more discomfort sharing their work-life challenges than men over the course of COVID. And that they may feel more worry about performance being judged due to caregiving, not even necessarily caregiving for children, but caregiving for other loved ones who are staying home that are COVID affected. All right, so let's get to it. Let's talk about our work-life balance. And before I go into introducing our panel, if you've enjoyed this discussion today, I do welcome you to join us on April 29th for part 2 of the Work Life series, where we will hear more from the health and beauty industry. Actually, we have Helen Miller from the Scott Miller Salon, Molly Flaherty, who is the owner of Embody, and Sarah Bantelman, who is the owner of Lumos Infrared Sauna Spa, where they will be talking about part 2 of our Work Life series and how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted their businesses. So to talk about our work-life balance today, we have Julie Camardo, the CEO of Zweigels Inc., Elisa Whitfield, the founder and CEO of Dress for Success Rochester, and Crystal Zawodzinski, the CPA manager of the Small Business Advisory Division at the Bonadio Group. All right, and if you have specific questions about anything as is popping up, you can feel free to put it in the chat box. And I would just ask Susan, if you could just monitor the chat box and let me know, because right now with sharing my screen, I'm having difficulty seeing that. So if you could monitor the chat box, I'll let Susan, as questions come up, hop in and we can sort of go from there. I'll start it out with a question right now. So I will start out by asking Julie, can you please comment on what changed in your businesses from 2019 until now? And then we can go to Elisa and Crystal.
Sure. Good afternoon, ladies. I hope everybody's having a wonderful sunny day inside your homes. So it's a great question. What's changed in my business from 2019 until now, specifically as it relates to COVID? So I sort of broke it up. So sales, when I think of, we're in the food manufacturing business, and we had a great influx when COVID first started of retail sales. On the opposite side, we also sell to food service companies, and that took a huge dive. As many of you know, restaurants were closed. We were all on lockdown. Zweigels was not on lockdown, and all other food manufacturers were also not on lockdown because everybody was rushing to the grocery store. So along the same lines, things that we've had to overcome this past year are how we go about doing our sales calls, and they're no longer in-person sales calls. So we had to switch everything to either virtually or they're just call-in customer service calls. And then same thing with how we participate in food shows and customer visits. We had a very strict lockdown policy and visitor policy when COVID first came, because nobody really knew what to do. There was very little documentation. We even had a hard time sourcing PPE in the very beginning of the pandemic when masks were hard to come by. So as well as we also had meat shortages. So as a company that we're a meat company, we had to work through some of our meat shortages and pivot along those lines. We had price increases that we had to overcome that nobody wants to, we don't want to have to put those through, but it definitely affected our bottom line. And then our plant level, we had employees that were told, wait, we're coming to work, but everybody else gets to stay home, because you cannot work from home manufacturing food. It's just not how it happens. So we really had to work with our employees. We had weekly, if not sometimes semi-weekly, new policies and procedures that we were implementing on telling people where they were to sit, what time they should come into work. Now you need your temperature taken. Now you have health questionnaire and screening you need to do. And we also had to figure out how to keep up our employee morale during this whole process, because everybody goes through a cycle of, yep, I'm great, I can get through this. And then we had the downturn. And as I look a year later, so we are still, we're still going strong, we're still manufacturing. And, there are times that in January, February, our morale it's been a little low. Our employees, they were tired. They have a lot of people that were doing the split work shift. So people sometimes staying at home with their kids, while other people have been working 5 days a week. They don't have children. So we're trying to overcome some of that I guess, angst that the people who are working every day versus the people that can only work a few days a week because of their childcare schedule, that's been an issue. Morale is definitely key, and communication is key. We've never, we've used our communication boards more than ever. And as well as we have iPad communications on the shop floor working with our employees. It's definitely been quite the challenge over the year, and we're still plowing through, and in food service, we're still battling, you know, hopefully fingers crossed, but we're still not essential to be able to offer our employees shots. So all of that vaccine question is, you know, it's coming right now. It's at a good time, and policies will be implemented by the time, you know, most of our employees will be eligible. So.
And there's certainly a number of considerations as far as mandating the COVID-19 vaccine too. And that's certainly a hot topic that I know a number of my clients are concerned about. So anyone, if you have a question about mandating that COVID-19 vaccine, again, consult with your attorney, talk about those pros and cons, because it's going to be different for everybody. It's going to look a lot different for everybody. All right, Elisa, I'd love to hear from you. What changed in your business from 2019 to now?
Well, as you know, nonprofit business is a little bit different than manufacturing, but we suffered some of the same issues that Julie did, only on the other side. So trying to figure out ways to offer resources to the women that may work in places like Zweigel's or some of the other manufacturing companies, or even retail. I mean, probably 70% of the women that we serve at Dress for Success work in retail, healthcare, restaurants. So it was a big blow to them to either be home full time, or be home taking care of kids and still having to go to work because they were essential. So we really just pivoted pretty quickly and put everything that we do inside the boutique online. And we just doubled down and did virtual coaching sessions and virtual interview prep in case they were going to try to find another position after being laid off for one. We had whole call centers closed down. And so we were really in full gear trying to help our women bounce back, or just be resilient through the last year. But what affected us probably the most is fundraising, because we are, you know, nonprofits are out there having events and bringing people together. And I'm a big hugger, so I love to have events where I can hug people and touch them. And that was just a blow on my psyche, you know, because every day now I'm coming to work up in my closet, which I'm in right now. And instead of in our boutique, talking with our women, hugging them, touching them, going out and seeing other women in the community, talking about Dress for Success. So for me, it was a little bit of a blow too. I'm trying to be up and, you know, be really positive for our clients, while at home, I'm like missing people so badly and just missing the interactions that I would have in the community. So, talk about trying to balance all of that. It can be tough. And I'm just happy that we're getting to the end of it, and our clients are able to start seeing that things are opening back up, and they're learning how to interview for positions that may, you know, be keep them at home and help them so that they can take care of their kids. Because as Julie said, that was a big issue, because they're home, their kids are home. How do you work from home when you have all your kids in the background? Or, you know, what if you don't have the resources at home to even do Zoom calls all day long? So we kicked ourselves into gear trying to help our women cope with that. But you also have to take care of yourself, which I'm sure is what you're going to talk about later too.
Yeah, definitely. And Crystal, turning to you, one thing before Crystal goes, if anybody has questions, if you can either put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand with the raise hand emoji. Okay, go ahead, Crystal. What changed in your business from 2019 to now?
So the shutdown happened right during our tax season, our corporate deadline, around March 15th. So it was very intense for us. On top of not being able to be in the office during that time was really hard because, you know, not everyone has the ability to work from home or has the technology, or, you know, they have small kids at home where it's impossible to work from home. So that was extremely stressful, I think, for everybody. There was the PPP on top of the tax returns that we had to get done. Now there's ERC, there's stimulus, there's all these additional things that we have to deal with on top of a normal, you know, stressful tax season. So it was really hard, I think, because, you know, while we had the ability to work from home, not everyone did have that ability and equipment at home. But we did adapt, and our tax season did get extended to July, which was good and bad. Now here we are again in 2021 having another extension, which is only a month this time, which I'm kind of thankful for. But it was really hard, you know, for our employees to be home, for our clients. A lot of our clients don't have the technology to get the documents to us electronically. So I think as a firm, you know, we moved a lot faster as far as, you know, the electronic files go, you know, with our portals and, you know, getting people the ability to get us filed electronically and safe. I think we sped that up quite a bit because of what happened with the pandemic.
Carrie Ann D'Onofrio, are you on?
I am.
Okay. Did you have a question?
Say that again?
Did you have a question?
Nope.
Oh, okay. I thought Susan said that you raised your hand. Alrighty.
Oh, nope.
Well, hi, welcome, Carrie Ann.
Hello.
All right, I'll go to my next question then. I want to flip the script here, and I want to ask all of you ladies, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your work-life balance currently? And 1 being the most off balance and 10 being the most balanced, no issues whatsoever. So I'll start with Crystal this time.
I'm actually one of the few that are probably in a better place than what I was before. I've had the ability to set up, you know, a really great home office. And as you can see behind me, I got my gym too right here. So, you know, I used to travel to and from the gym, half hour there, half hour home, pack my bags, you know, all that stuff. So right now I get up in the morning and I work out and I'm done. And it's great because you know, that's an hour right there, an hour and a half saved with time. My kids are home. I'm home, let's see, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, I go in the office Tuesday and Fridays. So I'm home more with them. And they're 8 and 10, so they're pretty self-sufficient. You know, they leave me alone during the day when I'm working, but I'm able to be with them and help them with their homework. And so it's been really good for me. But I have the ability to work from home and do a lot from home. So I think that's, you know, different from a lot of people.
Okay, so you have to give it a number.
9.
9?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
Wow.
Elisa, what about you? Hey, no pressure to be.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I would say that my COVID did help me actually focus on having some kind of balance, because before I would say when you're a small business, almost a one-person shop, you're always on. And I like to say yes to everything. And I like to do things for my friends. And Julie can attest, because when she said, "Would you do this?" I said, "Sure, Julie, anything for you." So I used to do that all the time, but I think having to slow down and really realize what's important for business and for personal life happened for me in 2020. So right now I balance this out by taking time during the day to work out, which I always said I didn't have enough time to do. Once the gym opened back up, I was right there. So I'm there 3 to 4 times a week, and I see somebody from Embody on there. If it's Molly, she will laugh because I never like to work out. So now I do. And also I just practice, just learn some meditation and mindfulness. And that came through COVID because everybody was talking about it. So I did some classes on that. And now I would say I'm pretty good at balancing work and life. In the beginning, oh my goodness, it was terrible because I was on my computer all day, Zoom call to Zoom call to Zoom call, and then working. And it would be 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I've been up just sitting at this desk all day. So now I do not do that. And it works out. And I also don't answer emails as soon as they come in anymore, which some people might be a little upset at, but it's okay. I learned from somebody that is in a very high powered position that after the third email, then you know it's a good one to respond to. So if they don't get back to you 3 times, then it's not that important. That's what she said. So I'm following that rule. So if I don't get back to you people after 2 or emails, send me a third one and I'll respond.
That's good to know. And actually, to Elisa's point, when I caught her on the phone, she was at the gym. So I know that what she's saying is true. All right, Julie, what about you? How would you, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the most off balance and 10 being no issues, completely balanced?
It's a good question. So, back when COVID first started, I'm going to give a little like where I probably was and where I am now. It was probably like a 3 or a 4 because it was, again, we were working, but then my children, I have 3 children, 2 that are to attend Mercy High School, and they had a phenomenal virtual school program. My son goes to St. Louis and elementary kids. So I'm not sure if anybody here on the call has how young you have kids. And I can only imagine the struggles with the little ones, but it was definitely a struggle to be at work. And then there were times that I would be like at work trying to like, I wouldn't say FaceTime my son, but I'd go through Alexa and I'd, find out like, are you doing your work? Are you on? And so I actually networked a little bit and tried to find someone who was available during the day who could come help my son while I was at work. And worked through that, but that was, a little bit of a struggle figuring out, okay, I just want to get like personally wise, what is the bare minimum that my son needs to do to turn in the work for the next day? So it'd be like, I'm at work all day, then I'm coming home, I'm, trying to get meals together for my family. And then I'm trying to figure out, okay, what work did my son miss? I'll be honest, it had its challenges in the beginning. There were some parts of COVID that the pause that we all had. So I talked about family dinners. I loved having family dinners. And that's become more of a regular for all of us. And we have talked more as a family, and it's much more regular to sit down together. Their sports and their activities definitely took a back seat because they were all paused for a very long time. And we're getting back into things. So I'd say right about where I am now is somewhere between a 7 or an 8, depending on the day. We're getting a little bit busier with more activities coming back. And so now it's managing just, the kind of the same things that we did before. How do you pick up like 3 kids at the same time, and you know, and the challenge now becomes a little bit, we're used to carpool a little more, so talking personally. And there are some people that, you know, parents maybe less likely to carpool. If you do, you know, make sure the masks are being worn, and how are you going to go about doing that, and how comfortable am I with that? And then I'm just going to put this out there as well, because, you know, one of the things that as parents we work through is this: while if your kids are in school and they have a little bit of a sniffles or a cold, and, you know, you fill out the health form. So it's sort of that, like when you first going for that first COVID test, and, you know, the nervousness of, do they have it? What is going on? But the waiting in the very beginning of the COVID, there was this longer waiting period where it'd be like 3 to 5 days or 7 days. And that also was for my employees as well. We'd have people missing work up to almost 7 to 10 days, it seemed, not getting COVID tests back and not being able to work, and wanting to make sure we're doing the right thing for HR wise. And it was not always so different for my kids. And so managing, okay, now I got to call the doctor, get a COVID appointment, make sure there's a letter to the school within like 24, 48 hours. So there's a little bit of balance on that too. And as time moves on, everybody's learned some things. Things have become a little bit easier. So there's not as much stress there, but the old stress of the activities, and I love going with my kids and seeing them play whatever their activities are in, or participating and watching them. So that's coming back again, and just trying to balance that. You know, some days it's today it's a work from home day, because I mostly have all virtual meetings, but most of the time I'm at work, and I love that I get to go to work every day pretty much, because I like being around people. And I guess I was fortunate from the beginning that I got to go to work, but, you know, and that definitely helps. And at the same time, there are times that my kids need to be at places, and, you know, it just has become a little bit of a struggle, but yeah, but we're in definitely a better place now. And we still do family dinners, which has been great.
That's great. So I've heard a couple different things as far as some tips and how you're managing work-life balance. I've heard a lot from Crystal and Elise that you both mentioned, you know, wellness, physical fitness, Julie, family dinners. What other things do you ladies have to recommend for work-life balance to help you get back into alignment?
I would just say there really isn't any balance. I mean, you just have to do what it is you need to do at the time you need to do it, and not let other things get, you know, in the way of it. We spend too much time, I think, thinking balance as like the ultimate, when it really isn't. It's all about doing what you can do, and not comparing yourself to what others do, because balance for Julie is being able to have dinner with her kids, because she works long hours. And for me, I don't have any kids at home, so I just need to, you know, make sure that I'm not sitting in front of a computer all day. That could be balance for me. So, and that I take a vacation, because for 27 years having kids around, I didn't take a vacation. And so now I'm saying yes whenever someone says, "Go, do you want to go somewhere?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it," and I figure out a way to do it. So I think that's for me what balance is. I just hate to talk about, oh, balance is spending 3 days at work, or, you know, I just think it's whatever it is good for you, and not feeling bad because you can't do one thing.
Exactly. And I think that every woman and every person really defines work-life balance different. Lisa, I think you're spot on with that. And I think especially in this post-pandemic world, where a lot of times the way that we're staying in touch with one another is through social media. And so what looks like work-life balance on someone's social media may not actually work across the board. And so keeping that open mind and giving yourself a little bit of grace to just be and explore what work-life balance, which may change from day to day, giving yourself the freedom to explore different strategies surrounding work-life balance. And it might actually help bring yourself into balance that way by allowing yourself the flexibility to really figure out what works for you, what works for your family, what works in your community. And it's not a one size fits all.
That's a good point.
All right. Any other tips that we have? Let's see, wait. Okay, we have one question here. How do we draw a line from when work stops and home life starts, when the pressure comes from the top? And there is this perception that working from home doesn't show much, doesn't show that you are actually working. So whoever wrote that question, Susan, did you want to speak up and just explain what you meant by that question?
So this question came through and I just kind of cut and pasted, but I think it's trying to say that when you can't really tell somebody's working, you don't really see the person in the office, and not the perception of sitting in front of a computer at work. I think that's what is being asked. So
Yeah.
where does it stop and end?
Well, if you're a business, if you're the manager or supervisor in charge of making sure that people are working from home, I think trust is the key there. Having trust in your employees and your employees trusting in you as well. That I just thought, okay, I'm never gonna know if this person is actually doing everything that I asked her to do in 8 hours in a day. So I just had to let that go and make sure that that I was checking in. Okay, I gave you these assignments. Are they done? And allowing her to work those assignments in her own time frame. It is tough if you're a person who likes to kind of control everything, but I think COVID has shown us that you cannot control everything, and it is okay to allow people flexibility. And I think if anything, business owners and corporations can take away from this that yeah, you can trust your employees to do their work, and you don't have to be looking over their shoulder all the time, because this is going to be the way of the world. Is there's going to be a lot more virtual, work from home now, and it's something that women have been asking for: flexibility in work and being able to stop in the middle of the day, go take our kids to the doctors, and not have to worry about, oh, is somebody clocking me and saying, oh, you took your lunch for an hour and a half as opposed to an hour. So I think trust is key, and communication, making sure you're saying to your boss, you know what, I'm going out and I'm doing this, but I'll have my work done. I think that could be helpful.
Yeah. One of the things that I've done in order to help, and I really don't have a lot of people that are working from home, but when I did, my experience is they actually were almost working twice as hard, it seemed like, because they felt guilty, especially because of where we were in the manufacturing, when they knew all those people were at work working, and they almost overworked. And I had to, in the early on, had to encourage them to take their breaks and shut their computer down and walk away. But having one-on-one meetings with your direct reports, I think that really helps, whether it's once a week for half an hour, is it once a day for 10 minutes, or is it once a month? It kind of depends on the working relationship and who you're reporting to. So I say your next level reports, and maybe even down, go down one more from that, and just sort of gut check, because when I do my one-on-ones, one of the first things that we usually discuss is, how are things going with you, not just business, but the personal questions, like how are things going personally? So you get to know, how they're doing during this pandemic and their family, and you set a time limit, and I think it helps. But trust is huge, like Elisa said. We have, if you show that you trust them, they will perform and do the work that you're wanting and needing them to do in order to get it done. I think, people that have been working from home, it's been quite a challenge. And I give a lot of credit, because I know there's a lot of women on this phone call who've been trying to do, the work from home and the school and, everything else that goes along with it. And I think if you're the employer and you, or as the manager, you need to have again, a little bit of understanding or empathy, because that parent may have, you know, their little child at home that isn't feeling well, or maybe they just kind of came into the meeting in the background, and you know, you need to understand that those things are going to happen during this pandemic time, and we're all going to get through this and things will change. But from my experience, I know that the people that have been working from home at Zweigel's, they probably worked a lot harder, and it was really encouraging them to take their breaks, but felt like those one-on-one meetings really helped.
We scheduled, we have weekly, we call them coffee breaks, because, you know, some people are still at home full time, some people are in the office full time, and you may not see the same people that you're used to. And so to keep the communication amongst all of the staff, we scheduled weekly coffee breaks where you get on like a Zoom call, and you're paired with 3 or 4 random individuals within our group, and you just you're not really talking about work, but you're talking about how, you know, things are at home. I just had one last week, and they were talking about this ninja foodie thing, and I was like, I want one of those. So I bought one of those, and then they were talking about going out to dinner at this place in Webster, and I ended up getting takeout that night. I was like, oh my God, this is costing me so much money, this call. But so it's important to, you know, catch up with your employees and make sure everyone's doing well. And you know, we have an internal, it's called Jabber, so it's a messaging system, so we can contact each other through that. And when we do meetings, we do these type of meetings even when we're in the office, because we try not to you know, be in each other's space. So I feel like I've actually seen more of my staff during COVID than I normally do, because instead of just picking up the phone and calling someone, I'm doing video calls. So it's nice to actually see the person.
And I see, I don't know, but I see someone had put a question in of sharing some actual tips that could help. I'll just share a couple of mine. I don't know if the other ladies have specific ones that they might like to share too, but one thing is, I would say for work-life balance in general is to do things that you know how to do and play to your strengths. So don't try to do everything at work just because you want to be the superstar. Like, do the things that you can really do and that you like to do, because when you do that, then it is kind of a balance, because you're not you're enjoying what you do. And for example, I would say if you are the type of person at work that loves to be a representative for your company at women's council events or events out in the community, take that as your thing to do, and go out and do those things, because it won't feel like work to you. And you won't say, oh gosh, I have to do another work thing. If you really like that, be the person to do it. Now, if you don't, then maybe you find some other way to have connections. It will help from overextending yourself if you're only going after those things that play to your strengths. And then one other tip I would say is to block off time. And I learned this only this year, actually. I blocked off time on my calendar. I actually put in, this is gym time, and I put the times in there. And that helped me stick to it, because I'd have the reminder coming up, oh, you got to go to the gym. And so I would not schedule any meetings, or I'd cut the meetings off and say, oh, I have another appointment. So that's just 2 tips from me.
That's great. Those are great suggestions. And I'm so sorry. I just want to be cognizant of everybody's time. Just as a closing here, I wanted to remind everybody what's next on She Talks Law. So I'm going to be partnering with the Rock Girl Gang for the next 6 months, and we are going to be presenting on April 26th, part 2 of Work-Life Balance, like I said before, with Molly, Helen, and Sarah. And then it's going to be the last Thursday of every month. So in May, we're going to be talking about different investment opportunities for minority and women business enterprises, and data and privacy legal update for your online businesses. So to RSVP, my email's there, and you can also follow She Talks Law on social media. And I believe Susan had something else that she wanted to say.
I just wanted to close it off. Thank you all for coming. Our wonderful panelists. Jennifer, thank you so much for Boylan Code support. A huge shout out to Cassidy Franklin helping put this together with you, Jennifer. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. We hope to see you at our next event. Thank you to our sponsors. Have a good one.
Thank you very much, everybody.